I truly believe that if you take the time to learn to use Cricut Design Space and what each and every function and button does, you can create anything you can imagine. Today, I want to share some Cricut tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. For example, if I want to turn off this whole design, I can go over here to the little eyeball icon and just click that and turn it off. The Cricut is only going to cut what it sees on your cutting mat. So right now, there's nothing turned on. So I can't even click the Make It button. If I insert a shape, I see a lot of people that will try to put their shape or their design in the upper left corner because they think that's where it's going to land on the Cricut cutting mat. So watch this. I have it way over here at 12 inches, but when I click Make It, the Cricut forces it to the upper left corner. So you don't have to work on your design in the upper left corner of everything. Just work in the center of the space. It's totally fine. Another thing is if you have a lot of information in your design and the file is really big, that can slow your Cricut down. So let's say you want to make 6 copies of this heart. Please, please, please stop making 6 copies in here because now you're adding more information in here. Just make one exactly how you want it, then click Make It. Then go up here and change how many copies you're doing and hit Apply. If you were going to use a copier, you would just put one of the item in the copier and then you would make that many copies. If you know you're going to use a smaller sheet of cardstock, like 8.5 by 11, you can change that here. And then the Cricut moved those hearts around so it would fit on my 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. What if you want to cut this heart exactly in half? Here's a little trick. Go to your shapes and insert a score line. Change the operation of that score line to cut. Select both of these items and center that line. Then click Attach. Now when I click Make It, it's going to cut the heart and cut it exactly in half. Here's another example for cutting things in half. Let's say I wanted to cut these doves so that they're not touching each other. They're actually two separate doves. Well, first, I need to get rid of that heart. So I'm going to use Contour. I'm just going to click on the heart shape and then these pieces, which are the inside of the heart. Now I'm left with just the doves. Now, if I take the score line, align it so it's centered, and change the operation from score to cut, and then attach that, when I click Make It, it's going to cut those doves, but then it's going to come back and cut a line right through here. So I will have two separate doves. If you have ever designed something here in Cricut Design Space and you want to get your image out of Cricut Design Space, I know there's a lot of people that will say, click up here to turn your grid off and take a screenshot of your design. But a screenshot is going to produce a very low quality image. But did you know that Cricut automatically saves a PNG file on your computer? So if I go to my C drive, click Users, then right here, Cricut Design Space, I can get a preview of my last saved project, which was this card that I made. This is a transparent PNG file. If you do a lot of sublimation that you design in Cricut Design Space, I recommend not printing from Cricut Design Space because then you're going to have to deal with the size issues and also you'll have the registration marks. And you don't really need to cut for sublimation. You really just need to print. When I see people say, I want to get into sublimation, which Cricut should I get? My answer is none of them. If you want to do sublimation, you need a sublimation printer, sublimation ink. You don't even need a Cricut at all. You really just need to print. So if I wanted to print out this design, I could do it much larger if I was printing straight from here versus from Cricut Design Space. I can just click on those three little dots and say print. If you want the letters for the word love cut right out of this heart, there's a couple different ways you can do that. So right here, I'm going to show you the three different ways to do this. They're all going to give the exact same results. I can either select all of this and click attach. Now this is exactly how it's going to cut. And if I want to remove those letters from the inside of the heart, I can do that. The next way would be to select all of this and click slice. And now I would take the word love, remove it from my design, and delete these. But now you can see the holes for the word love through your design. The other way to do that would be to select this and use subtract. Subtract leaves the same results, but you don't have to delete those extra pieces. All of these options are going to give you the same end results. The Cricut's going to cut the heart and then cut the word love. Now, one thing for this example, you were cutting this out of cardstock. This O is going to be separate from the rest of this design because it's not connected to the main heart. So how do you fix that? You can put what's called a bridge in there. This is used a lot for stencils. You have to create something that's going to connect it. So I'm just using a square that I turned into a line, and then I am going to weld that. Once I weld that piece there, it's going to be connected by this little tiny line. My next Cricut tip is actually something I presented in a summit. Since I can't share that whole summit video here, I'm just showing the fun little tip part. Now you might be a little confused right here because you're thinking, Sean, we jumped right into mid-assembly. I'm doing this for a very specific purpose. I cut out everything, and it was while I was assembling the wreath and putting the green pieces on, I was using the cutout as a template and kind of arranging things and figuring out my spacing. And it was really difficult and frustrating. Then I remembered there's a little trick I can do. So now we're going to go back into Design Space. I'm going to show you the trick and why it saved me so much time with this specific piece. So you can use this trick anytime you're going to have to layer and line up little pieces. I'm going to take the wreath and I'm just going to duplicate it. You can either right click and duplicate or click this little button up here to duplicate. And the reason I'm duplicating was really because I've already created the original and I didn't want to mess with that design. So I'm doing a second one. Now I'm going to click from the layers panel, holding my shift key, and select the red, green, and blue pieces. I'm going to go over to operation and change it from basic cut to draw with the pen. Now it changed it to a black color, so I can't see it. So I'm just going to change it to a lighter color so it stands out and we can really see it here. Ooh, the yellow works good because that pops off of the design. So now I need to tell Cricut Design Space, hold the placement and position of these drawn lines on this wreath. So I am going to use attach to do that. Attach will hold the placement and position of things. Now I'm going to turn off the main design so I only have the black wreath visible when I click make it, because the Cricut's only going to make what it can see and what's visible. Now you can see that it's saying it's first going to draw the lines with the pen and then cut the wreath shape. So let's look at the process at the Cricut machine for this same piece. The first part was going to be drawn with the pen, so make sure you have a pen in the holder. Then you will press the C and it's going to do all the drawing. Let's zoom in here and you can really start to see the drawn pieces. So it's drawing the outline, and then that's going to make it easier for us to place all those little pieces because we're going to have an outline to guide us. Then the Cricut is going to pause and we're going to switch out the pen for the blade. And then it's just going to cut the outline of the wreath. And then after I unload this and bring it up, you can see those little lines. So now we'll have exact placement. So when I assemble the wreath, I can put glue into the different sections inside those lines and then just place the piece. It's kind of like putting together a puzzle. Now, if you are anything like me, you forget to click that mirror button when you're in the Make It screens, when you're doing iron on vinyl. Well, here's a Cricut tip for you. If you know you're always going to be using this design for iron on vinyl, use the flip button here. Now everything is mirrored already, so you can just click Make It and everything is ready to cut. If you have a hard time remembering which functions do what, I have a cheat sheet on my website. But also, you can remember that these functions up here only control what's going on your Design Space canvas. These buttons down here are going to control how it goes on the cutting mat. I know a lot of people confuse group with attach. So let's do this. If I highlight these and group them, I can move them around together. It impacts how they look on the canvas. That's up here is the canvas functions. If I select these and use attach, this put them on the same layer and now they are going to cut exactly like this. That impacts how they're going to cut these down here. To further show that, that's how it's going to cut. The ones that are grouped doesn't impact how it's going to cut. Let's show that again. So these are groups, so now I can resize them together and move them around together. But when I click Make It, because they're still separate layers, they go to their own cutting mats. So these buttons up here impact what happens on the canvas, while these down here affect the output of how your project's going to come together. Now let's look further at these functions down here. I'm going to use the exact same elements. So a heart stacked on top of another heart. If I select both of these and click slice, it's going to cut one heart out of the other. That's what slice does. It cuts. Think of slicing bread. If I select both of these and use weld, merge them together. That's what weld does. If you're welding two pieces of metal together, you're joining them together to make one. When I select these two and click attach, it puts them both on the same layer and it will attach one to the other. If I select both of these and click flatten, that turned those two layers of a heart into one print then cut image. It is now going to print this two colored heart design and then just cut around the outside edge. That's what flatten does. It turns anything that's a cut design into a print then cut. You do not need to group or attach before clicking flatten. Flatten does it all in one. Last button over here is contour. Contour allows you to turn on and off different elements within your design. So if I use contour for this one, you can see all the inner heart pieces. And now as I click on them, you can see I'm turning some of them on and off. If I wanted to, I could duplicate this and stack that one right on top of the other. I'm going to make one of those red. And with the red one, I'm going to use contour. I'm going to turn off that outline. So now it's just cutting those inner pieces. See how those just fit right in there? This is how you can create layers because now this is a two color or two layered design. So why am I showing you all this? Because I truly, truly believe if you learn to use Cricut Design Space and understand what it does when you click on certain buttons, you can make anything you want. If you thought this short little video with tips and tricks was helpful, you should go check out my Teach Me Cricut Design Space online course. That course is filled with over 20 videos, over 30 projects. Let me teach you everything I know. Before you go, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. I love to hear from you.